Okay, technical difficulties. The operator seemed to have forgot how to do share screen from yesterday, but he's got it back again. It's okay. Hold on. It's coming.
Okay.
Okie.
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 Okie and welcome.
We acknowledge that we're gathered on the lands of the Blackfoot people of the Canadian Plains.
We pay respect to the Blackfoot people's past,
present,
and future. We recognize the thousands of Indigenous peoples
From many diverse nations,
Call after home.
including members of the Blackfoot Confederacy,
the six gates of the people,
Akana,
Siksika,
Amskapi people,
as well as other First Nations,
Métis, and Inuit peoples.
We respect Indigenous people's cultural heritage,
beliefs,
truth
and relationship to the land.
that stretches back in time.
We will not blink at history.
We will not blink at history.
And we will learn from it.
Okie is an invitation.
A step forward.
In Blackfoot, Okie means hello.
Okie means hello.
Hello.
Okie.
Okay.
Okie.
Okie, and welcome to the lands of the Blackfoot people.
Okay, and welcome to a lovely chat today with Master Vincent. My name's Alan Friesen. Master Vincent here reached out to us at Jess FM about, 2 or 3 days ago, something like that, and said, I wrote a book. It's life-changing. I want to tell people about it. And I said, I want to hear about it, Master Vincent. So welcome, sir. Tell us about what you got happening, my friend.
Okay, starting out with the book. So this is my first publication. It's the Yoga Sutras. It's basically one of our fundamental core spiritual texts that give us the purpose of spirituality. So where do we start? What do we start? Why? So the first thing that I think it's important that people understand is that you have a soul. Your soul is found on the inside right side of your heart. As soon as you realize your soul, you become a realized being. You're either a realized being or a non-realized being. To realize your soul, you simply calm your mind and focus on your heart, and you see the interrelationship between your brain, your thoughts, and the actual consciousness itself, which is found in the heart.
Beautiful, beautiful. So, you and I have had a chat for about 7 minutes before we decided we had to go live. We couldn't wait any longer. And in that conversation, we were saying we're on the same page. And for people who are listening to this, what's going to resonate is that we are spiritual beings who are having this Homo sapien experience. And then what Master Vincent is guiding us is how do we make that spiritual connection so that we can have peaceful days, that we can enjoy these moments. Am I putting words in your mouth, or are we on the same page, brother?
Well said. Well said. As soon as you realize that you have a soul, well, what is the purpose of yoga? As American people, we've all heard the word yoga, but I don't think many people discuss what the purpose is. So what it says is that your soul is found in your heart, and your brain is the intermediary between the soul and the physical plane. But when we experience things through the five senses, the sight, the hearing, the smell, the taste, and the feeling, our soul gets entangled up in the physical existence. And then the physical existence changes. So because of the changing of the physical existence and the attachment of the soul to things that are impermanent, it causes us stress, anxiety, fear, worry, doubt. So through meditation and through practice of the 8 limbs of yoga, we're able to slowly but surely weed out these attachments and these negative emotions and thought waves until we're left with pure bliss, which is the nature of the consciousness itself.
Beautiful, beautifully said. And so much of this of health, of bliss, of joy, it's only found in the present moment. Is that correct? Like, where else are we finding it except for
Absolutely, Alan. I'm happy you started with that. The first sutra, when Patanjali, he's the guy who wrote the Yoga Sutras, and basically what they're saying is Patanjali was like a high angel. He wasn't like Buddha. Buddha was born as a human and made it to enlightenment. Patanjali was a high angel who dropped to earth. So it's a little bit difference between him and Buddha, but the teachings are the same. But the first one is yoga takes place now, or yoga happens in this moment. So when they asked Patanjali, what is yoga? Patanjali's answer was, be fully present in this moment. Be here right now. And that's yoga. The thing is that we come out of the present moment. We want things in the future. We're worried about losing things. We become anxious about tomorrow or the next day or that big appointment. We become attached to things. We lose a lover. We lose a friend. These things happen and they bring us out of the present moment. So what Patanjali's saying is, it's our psychological processes that bring us out of the joy and the bliss that are in the present moment. So in order to maintain in the present moment, the mind should be calmed, and then the mind should be rejoined with the soul. And when the soul is purified from practicing the yamas and the niyamas and asana and pranayama, then the mind will naturally be drawn into the soul and the two become one.
Beautiful. Beautiful. And so your book, when you wrote it, wait a minute. First of all, back up. You've kind of had an epiphany that changed your life, right? Which caused you to write this book to make a difference in other people's life. What was that? What was the moment that said, I got to write this down?
Okay, well, epiphany means realization. And every day, if we're practicing properly, we should have epiphany after epiphany after epiphany until the final epiphany, which would be called death, or I like to call Bardo. So we're constantly going through a permanent state of epiphany and realization. I started with this text because it's a classical text. And after studying all the Buddhist text, the Christian text, the Taoist text, and the yogic text, this text covers all of the basis, and there's only 196 sutras, and they're non-biased. And now at this point, I'm certain that this text should be a text that everybody starts with. And if you study the teachings of Buddha, if you study the teachings of Jesus, after reading this text, there's no doubt in my mind that both Buddha and Jesus studied this text. So this is one of the core fundamental texts of spirituality ever written. But when our ancestors wrote the text down, it wasn't spirituality. It was this is the knowledge and the wisdom that we want to give people so that they can have a happy life, free from disease and free from suffering. And not only those people, but also all the people in the whole world. By reading this text and practicing the 8 limbs of yoga, the world will be more peaceful, more generous, more happy, more calm, less stress, less disease, less worry.
Beautiful. Beautiful. That's awesome. And so you've basically taken a text that you recognize as sacred, and then now you have kind of republished it in a way to make it more relevant today. Is that kind of what you've done?
It is my personal translation, so it's my unique translation. So Patanjali says that repeated study of the sutras is what the yogi should do to attain kaivalya or nirvana or liberation. So there's a lot of different ways that people have presented it. In my version, I have multiple translations for each sutra. So it allows you to focus on the sutra and study them repeatedly and commit them to soul memory as fast as possible.
Okay. And the multiple translations, what languages have you translated them to?
All the translations are coming into English, and my English translations are coming with a Christian upbringing and a heavy Buddhist and Taoist background. And I also have the spiritual gift to see insight into the texts.
Cool. Okay. Well, this sounds fascinating.
Alan, the question is probably why multiple translations? So when they initially wrote this text in Sanskrit, the Sanskrit language is very expressive, and one Sanskrit word can mean 100 different words in English, because English is a lot more of a descriptive language. So, for example, the word dukkha means suffering, stress, unholiness, ugliness, pain, sorrow, doubt, fear. All of those English words are one word, which means dukkha. So when I give the multiple translations, I do my best to cover the whole translation from Sanskrit into English. And some of the translations were coming from people from India who were introducing the text into English. I'm coming in with an English understanding and translating the text from Sanskrit as a second language into English as a first.
Cool. Cool. So you've you're quite a language scholar as well. Would that be a fair statement?
Yes. Mhm.
Okay. And tell us this. I couldn't just start calling myself Master Allen. That would be inappropriate. Somebody would have to say, even though I might think that in my mind, just so you know, like a little bit of an ego issue there, Master Vincent. But it wouldn't be appropriate for me to do that. Somebody has to qualify you. Somebody has to test you. Somebody has to say, yes, you can use this title. How does that happen? How did that happen for you?
Okay, well, first of all, a master has failed more than a beginner has ever attempted. So I don't think that there's an issue if you want to call yourself a master, if you really are a master. As soon as you have reached the goal of yoga and mastered these high levels of spirituality, teaching for 15, 16 years, that's fine. I'm a licensed Reiki master teacher, so I'm a licensed RMT. So I do have the piece of paper that says I'm a master. But as soon as you still your mind and you reach the higher limbs of nirvana and samadhi, if you want to call yourself a master, that's absolutely fine. I think that we should bring it in the modern days to where, yes, I am a spiritual master. I've been practicing for 16 years. I've calmed my soul. I've realized my soul. I'm a realized being. As soon as you come into that, that's fine. I'm also a yoga master and a qigong master. So I have the paperwork to back it up. And I'm actually a master of these things as well. How do you know that you're a yoga master or a qigong master? Qigong for enlightenment is liberating your soul from the physical body. The qigong practice is how to cultivate your internal energy in order for great health and in order for the same goal, which is spiritual enlightenment. You've become a yoga master when your mind and your soul have become one, and you become one with the universe and creation. Then you can call yourself a yoga master. Now, the thing that I see is people aren't saying, well, you have to practice the 8 limbs of yoga. So the 8 limbs of yoga are traditionally taught where basically your mind has fluctuations. It thinks, it worries, it fears, it doubts. These fluctuations cause fluctuations in vrittis, what's called in your consciousness. The way to stop these mental fluctuations and free yourself from stress and earthly attachment is by practicing the 8 limbs of yoga and studying the sutras. So in the religion, it's study. It's part of the religion, is continued study. But along with study goes concentration, meditation, which is stillness, practicing of the moral and ethical codes, and then breath work, pranayama, focusing on the breath. These are the limbs that are prescribed by the ancient ancestors. So this is how it should be taught. Now, people say, oh, that's dogmatic. Well, they're limbs. They're not steps. So each time you practice one limb, that limb grows. The final limb is nirvana, samadhi. The final limb of samadhi blossoms after you become well established and master the first 7 limbs. The fruit of the first 7 limbs of yoga is nirvana. And that's another thing that I don't see that nobody's teaching. Listen, there is a thing called nirvana. Everybody's heard of nirvana, not just the band. But nobody's teaching, well, this is how you get to nirvana. This is what nirvana is. And nirvana is a real thing.
In a lived experience, you're an elevated being. Is that the term you use? Elevated, I think you said. Is that the anyways, when you experience that you are experiencing nirvana, how is that in your body? What is that? What does that mean?
Well, for this is why I recommend repeated reading of the book. So the first sutra is yoga takes place now. And the second sutra is yoga is stilling the mind. Then the third sutra is then the mind rests within the soul. Those 3 sutras right there give you a very good summary of it and what it is. So rather than put it in my own words, which every master can do over and over again, I can sit here and tell you 1,000 different ways. The way that it's traditionally written in the text is superior than what I could teach as a person. If you look at the Buddha, people will go to the Buddha, and Buddha could assess the person. Okay, this person is intellectual. This person has stubbornness issues. This person lacks consistency. This person needs more charity. So as a master, you can assess your student and give that student exactly what the next puzzle piece is. But repeated study of the text, there's no supplement for that. There's nothing that's going to give you the actual repeated study of the text. And it wasn't until I read the text about 7 or 8 times that I actually started to fully grasp the text. And that's what Patanjali tells us here. He says you're supposed to study this text repeatedly until you attain Kaivalya. Then you mention levels. The book goes into levels. So in the Yoga Sutras, they call it samadhi. In Buddhism, they say jhana states. You can say levels of nirvana, so on and so forth. But they're describing the same thing. Your mind becomes one with your soul, and your body, your emotions, your brain, your soul becomes so absorbed in the present moment that they ignite, and the elements within your body begin to change, and your aura field starts to glow. And then you become fully and totally present in the present moment, where what you look at, there's no longer any type of ego that paints a separation between what you look at. You and the object of concentration become one.
Beautiful, beautiful. Hey, have you, do you know who Jill Bolte Taylor is? Have you heard of her? Oh my goodness. I'm just sharing this with you. I think you might find it interesting. She was like, she is a neuroscientist regarding the brain. That's like, she's super, super smart about the brain. If you Google her right now, you'll find 10 videos of her holding the brain and pointing to pieces in a brain. This is like her thing. She was involved in this course of study when she had a stroke that shut down the whole left side of her brain. So she can basically watch her brain shut down. What she was left with, was total bliss. There was no memories of the past. There was no fear of the future. It was just this present moment and this state of bliss. It took her 8 years to recover her function so she could talk and walk and those kind of things. But it wasn't troubling for her because she was in this state of bliss. But when she did recover the rest of her brain functioning, then she just decided she's going to focus more on that experience, that part of her brain, engaging that. And I know that the Yoga Sutras are a way, maybe the best way, but it's not the only way to get there, is it?
So the Buddhists have the eightfold path. The yogis have the 8 limbs of yoga. The goal is going to be the same. It does pay to be classically taught. So it's very hard to do something better than what Patanjali and Buddha did here with these texts. In the 196 suttas, they cover everything. Any more, it'd be too much. Any little, and it'd be too little. So it is a perfected text. Other things, is there many different ways? Oh yeah, I'm sure there's countless ways. You still want to have somebody guiding you to the path. Even Siddhartha, the Buddha himself, had the best education and was highly recommended or highly educated in Sankhya philosophy. The Buddha did not sit underneath a tree without being taught the best education of his time. So to get to the goal of spirituality without having some kind of a teacher or some kind of an intelligence guide the way, it's very rare. In fact, it's never been recorded in human history that a being's got there without some kind of a previous education. Is it possible? Sure, anything's possible. But the classical ways are put together and had time, thousands of years, to look at the text and say, okay, this is how we should put it. This is what needs to go in. This is what doesn't. So it matters, are you being guided there by the right person? Then the question is there one spiritual goal? And according to the Yoga Sutras, there is. As soon as the soul becomes liberated and you never fall back into duality again, in other words, you never form an emotional attachment again. Your concentration and your awareness are so powerful, and your brain is so trained and your soul is so perfected with virtue that you never fall into samsara again. What is samsara? Samsara is pleasure and pain. Oh, I like Taco Bell. I want to have a taco. Next week, you want to have another taco. The week after that, you want to have another taco. So what it says is pleasure leads to desire and emotional attachment, and pain leads to hatred. Now, these two sutras right here are extremely important that everybody should know. This is something that should be taught. Your pleasure leads to craving, desire, and addiction, and your pain is going to lead you into anger and hatred. So these sutras that are in here, there's no type of replacement for that. This is something that has to be taught and learned.
Cool. I always have a challenge. I think there's, you'd mentioned about pleasure leads to desire, leads to addiction, right? So now explain to me, I find that sometimes I can use my senses, the pleasure of receiving, things in my eyes that appeal to me, things in my ears that appeal to me, touch on my skin that appeals to me. Those I call as pleasures. And those ones I can find as a tool to get to this present moment, to stay in this present moment, kind of bypass the thoughts. Just, focus on thoughts because you're focusing on those inputs that I have as part of being in this body temple. So, and I think that's a positive thing, but that kind of pleasure leading to desire, leading to addiction, that seems like is pleasure always a bad thing according to that sutra?
Excellent point. Two things. First thing, the purpose of life is to enjoy life. So we are supposed to enjoy life, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with pleasure whatsoever. And in the moments of pleasure, you experience a still mind. Think about it. You come home, tough day, you throw on a movie or a television, and then all of a sudden your mind calms down. And then in that moment, you have a still mind. So what it says in the Yoga Sutras is we should focus on something that makes our mind calm and still. It doesn't matter what it is. As long as whatever you're focusing on calms and stills the mind, that's fine. And usually we'll start with something external, and that might be something that gives us pleasure. But then you take the external object away because you're focusing inwards towards the soul. Whenever you put something in your mind, that's considered food to a yogi. So whatever it is that's causing you pleasure, you're feeding that to your mind. The fourth limb is cutting out what you're feeding the mind and focusing inwards towards this instead of outwards towards that. So not that pleasure is a bad thing, but it stimulates the mind, and it doesn't give the mind time to realize what we truly are. And one more thing, see, the science can tell you that your brain from ages 2 to ages 8 go through the biggest neuroplasticity points. And that's when you're running around as a kid with your mouth wide open, falling on your knees, just taking in your environment, taking in your environment. By the time most people to get to 24, 26, the neuroplasticity begins to slow down. By the time most people get to 32, the neuroplasticity becomes pretty low. But if you take a Buddhist or a practicing yogi and you hook their brain up to a brain scan, the neuroplasticity is the same. So we have the ability to constantly be adapting and learning with our environment. But here's the thing. Science can't tell you where the memory is stored. They can tell you exactly how the brain works. They can tell you this is the neuroplasticity of the brain, but they can't say the brain keeps the memories. So in yoga, when you're doing your meditation and focusing inwards, you see where the memories come from. Then when you see where the memories come from, the memories are stored on the soul. So then you start to see them come up, and you're tracing back your memories all the way back to this birth. And then you become non-attached to the cravings. Now, pleasure is good, and for a lot of people, it's fine. But what about people who become addicted? What about people who become too overweight? What about people who kill themselves? What about people who are stressed out? What about people who are depressed? So we have these issues too.
Right.
So it's
hey,
not
Master Vincent, can I jump in here and just a little bit of context for you?
Yeah.
For the last couple of years, I've been on quite a journey to understand childhood trauma, adverse childhood experiences, how you heal from adverse childhood experiences, the factors that contribute to adverse childhood experiences, poverty and systemic racism and those kind of things. And I think, like, just to kind of tie into what you're saying, the present moment, if you have these memories that you've got to a place that you have no more emotional attachment, these are experiences you had in the past. They happened. It's over. Now go forward. I can only go with that's fine of what I learned, but now I'm just going forward with love and connection and going to keep encouraging that. And, through that process, I think healing those past trauma is part of that journey to get to where you can stay in this present moment. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. 100%. When the memories bubble up, a lot of the memories are absolutely beautiful. And the beautiful memories that you've had, the memories with your father, with your mother, or with your loved ones in your past, or with your friends that have passed away, or your beautiful memories that come up, they make you tear. But then those memories that come up that were painful, they come up as well. And you start to become more and more at peace with those. But your memory becomes conscious awareness. So the memories, when you start to get into samadhi, the highest levels of yoga, your memories actually become consciousness around you. What the book says is that the soul holds consciousness itself. The brain has no consciousness. The brain is like a little window in which you're experiencing the world. The soul experiences the world. But then when the soul and the brain become one, they become so absorbed in the space that all of your virtues, your love, your strength, your compassion, and your memories become conscious in the moment.
Sorry, I was just trying to keep up with you there, sir. Okay, I think I'm following along. So here's what we want you to know. If this resonates with you, Master Vincent's message here resonates with you, you say, Yoga Sutras, I didn't know this. I'm going to have Master Vincent as my guide along to learn these 186 Yoga Sutras, that if I follow this, if I dedicate myself to this, this will get me to nirvana. I'm in. Here's how you get the book. Amazon.com, Yoga Sutras, Emancipation, Vincent Ferrer. That's the place you go. You buy the book. And you could have a chat with Master Vincent. I think you seem to be a very approachable person. I buy the book and I'm trying to figure life out. If I reached out to you, would you respond?
I try to get back to everybody who reaches out to me. Sometimes I get a little bit overwhelmed. I'll get like 100 or 200 messages at one time. So it can be challenging to get back to everyone.
Sure.
But try to reach out to me different ways. If it's sincere about spirituality and your practice, you can leave me a message on my YouTube. You can send me a message on my Instagram, on my Facebook. And if I don't get back to you right away, message me a couple times and I'll do my best to get back to you. If not, I also have public classes at LA Fitness in Lake Grove. If you want to come and see me, I offer classes to the public there, and you can come and we can train yoga together. That's Lake Grove, New York.
Yeah. And how's that working with COVID times for you? Like, what kind of checks, if any, do you have for students to come and do yoga with you?
There's a mask is recommended to come into the gym at this point in time.
Okay.
We're pretty hardcore at the gym, so we're not really worried too much about that.
Okay.
If you're sick, you might not want to come. Wait until you get better. But as long as you come and bring a mask, you'll be fine.
Okay, super. And so then you don't ask for proof that people have been vaccinated or a negative COVID test or anything like that?
No.
Okay. Yep. Just checking. For some people, that's I don't want to go. As you know, there's quite a divide among how you correctly correspond, or how you should behave in these times, given COVID, wear mask, not wear mask. And a lot of it is to do with, like, the person's freedom to choose, and what would motivate them. I wear a mask. I am not worried about COVID myself, but I certainly don't want to give it to anybody who maybe is in a lesser healthy state, and has problems and leads them to contract COVID because of my contact. I certainly don't want that to happen. But But anyways, I got on COVID. I didn't want to go there. I think we've all had enough chat about COVID, haven't we?
If you want to chat about it, nothing's taboo with me. Nothing is taboo with me.
I think what you're talking about is about focusing on things that you can change internally, decisions you can make, practices you can take to make your life better. It doesn't have to matter what the government decided or what this bill passed or what the news says. These are things you can do right now, today, to make tomorrow a better day.
Absolutely. The bottom line is we have the right to remain silent and we have the right to practice religion. And those two rights right there are the ones that are in danger, and they're the most important ones. So if you force somebody to answer a question, you've taken away their fundamental right, which is to remain silent and segregate them. So really what we should be coming out of this with is a clearer mind of what the rights are, why our ancestors made the laws the way that they did so that we be free from tyranny, and why we as people have to stand up for our rights so that we don't fall into a place of tyranny again. The United States government is only as good as the people. The government is sovereign to the people. The people are not sovereign to the government. But if we don't let our voice be heard, then the government can do whatever they want. And that was a real dirty trick that was pulled too. So if we have the right to remain silent, you shouldn't have to say, I'm vaccinated or I'm not vaccinated. If they force you to respond, then you're now officially no longer a free man.
You know what? I don't want to leave us there because we're focusing on things that are divisive, right, and we're about inclusive. We're about connection. We're about drawing people in, right?
These problems that are surfacing in the United States,
yes,
are surface problems, but get to the root of the problem, that's what this text is about. It's like putting a Band-Aid on a bullet hole and you're still in Vietnam in the middle of the war. You can stop the bleeding, but if you're getting shot at, what's going to stop it? So this stops the main causes of all of the suffering on the earth. Whereas these little things are individual problems that have surfaced. This is one problem. This is one problem. This is one problem. This cuts out the root of the problems with its earthly attachments.
I have to tell you something, and just knowing where you are in your journey, and I think that you will find this of interest. I had about a month ago, 2 months ago, maybe, I don't know, sort of a vision, a direction. And I was told that I was an instrument of the divine. And I no, I think you must have the wrong Alan Friesen. There's probably another one. My cousin, he's a mayor in Manitoba, and maybe that's the guy you're thinking. And, I was assured, no, I was the instrument of the divine. So I sat with that for a long time, and I've struggled with that for a long time. But now that I fully understand what that means, I'm going for it. I'm going to accept that I'm an instrument of the divine. And I think this is going to work out sweet. Because if I understand it, my job is to help other human beings along their journey. And I think the way we do that, and this is applicable in my community, but applicable in any community, is the root of so much suffering is violence. And then the violence leads to more suffering, which leads to more violence, which leads to more suffering. So if we decided that we're going to look out for our brothers and sisters who appear to be having a challenge, that they might not be safe, and then we, being familiar with the resources in our community, knowing where these things are able to say, hey, Sarah, it appears that you are not safe. I would like to help you be safe if you wish my help. And if Sarah says, yeah, I think I'm going to get beat or raped tonight. This is a storm brewing. And then I could say, Sarah, I know Sally at this shelter, she's going to take you in. Do you have a ride? Let me get you an Uber. Let me get you to a place where you're safe. We do that. She never experiences that violence. Her kids don't see her experience that violence. And all that trauma, all that pain that she would have to endure for weeks and weeks and years and months and decades never happens. That's where we got to get.
Oh, yeah. Oh, definitely. I 100% agree with you.
Perfect. Okay. So if you want to want to check out Master Vincent more, there's where you find his book. If you just plug in bringing it up for the screen first a little bit. If you just Google him, I saw that you got a YouTube channel. You could join on the YouTube channel. You could subscribe, keep current on what he's sharing. Anything closing words you want to give us there, Master Vincent?
Definitely. My YouTube channel is Wisdom, Master Vincent Ferrer. It goes with the idea, like the Buddha taught, like Patanjali taught, that the only way to cure suffering in this world is through education, knowledge, and wisdom. So it's a lot about health knowledge, health wisdom, spirituality, spiritual knowledge, spiritual wisdom. Please like, subscribe, and share. And Alan, your vibes are great. Thank you very much for having me on the show. I really appreciate you.
That was a lot of fun. I appreciate you too. You're going to make a big difference in the world. Thank you for that.